Um, Hi everybody, I'm Nicola Pogson, Head of Alumni Relations at Imperial College Business School, and today I'm very pleased to welcome once again David Pullinger, Careers Consultant and Coach at the Business School. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
A little bit of background on David. Some of you who might have done one of our previous webinars would know about his background, but I'd like to give it to those who are new to joining us. David's career has been in HR management and in a variety of industries such as financial services, retail and shipping. He's also been an HR director in Thorn and Legal and General, where he specialised in talent management, and we'll be talking about that today. Since 2001, he has run his own business as an executive coach and consultant. He works with senior executives to improve their performance and facilitate work on strategy issues in the insurance sector. He's also taught career planning and HR strategy at Oxford Brookes University Business School and has an MA in coaching. Before kicking off, I'd also like to remind you that if you want to have one-to-one consultations and on your career strategy, you can also do that for free by contacting our Career Professional Development Service. Details are on the alumni website and give you insights into your career strategy, your CV, do one-to-one mock interviews. So do make sure that you keep your career on track by plugging into that very good service. Today we are going to welcome alumni, or we've got alumni registered from, once again, 10 different countries across the globe, and that's going from Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, India, Italy, South Korea, Niger, Turkey, UK and the USA. So some are getting up early and some of them are probably just about to eat dinner. A couple of things before we start. As usual, it will be recorded, so you can listen to the recording later. You'll have the opportunity to ask David questions. So start towards the end of the presentation. We will highlight when you can start asking them, and you can do that via the Q&A function. He'll also be happy to respond to any questions you may think of after the webinar is over. Now I've just got David Stevens. It says his audio is connecting but no sound. Just hold on a sec. Okay, I'm going to hand over to David now.
Thank you, Nicola. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be with you via the webinar again. And I'm going to be talking about getting careers going inside your companies. And one of the things that I found as a coach and consultant at the business school is a lot of people are very prepared to put enormous amounts of energy into getting jobs outside, and it is part of my remit sometimes to encourage people to put the same amount of energy into getting jobs inside their own company. So that's going to be the focus of what we talk about today, and in particular I'd like to just, if I can advance the slide. I can't advance the slide. We'll try and get that sorted out. Just one moment. There we go. Sorry about that. So these are the sort of topics I'd like to talk about. Firstly, what is a promotion? It might seem obvious, but I'd just like to make a few comments about the different sorts of promotions, what constitutes promotion, what doesn't, and also some of the issues that arise from different sort of organisation structures. To look at the formal or informal regimes that exist in different companies and different countries. Third, to really understand what it is that you want to get from a promotion and what is the motivation for you. The importance of doing a good job is probably reasonably self-evident, but maybe worth just reinforcing. Getting appropriate experience which equips you in the best possible way to be moving into the job that you want. Being noticed, lots of people, I would say one of the main characteristics that I find when I'm talking to MBAs in particular is that there's a sense that doing a good job should be enough. But I think in companies of any size, then being noticed and having a reputation for doing a good job is also important. Being proactive has probably never been more important. I'll say a few words about talent management, and I'd also add a final sort of few thoughts around the future of the world of work, because I think it's important in the context of building a career in companies that we all have some perspective on how our jobs, companies, careers, etc. are moving forward. So those are going to be the topics. So let's just get started into what a promotion is. And I think it's fairly easy to think of it as a move up an organization chart. I mean, that has been the sort of traditional way of thinking of a promotion, that there'll be the CEO at the top of the chart, and then the board of directors, senior management, middle management, etc., etc. So promotion is clearly getting you closer to the CEO's role. Probably in companies which have grading structures will have increasing grade attached to it, which will also mean a resulting pay increase or benefits. And of course, if you're in a UK company, the best way to guess when someone has had a promotion is to see the sort of car that they drive up to the car park in a few weeks after they've been promoted, because typically with promotions come different grades of car. So in UK companies, that's the absolute giveaway that somebody's been promoted. In other countries and maybe in smaller companies, that may not be so evident. Also, with promotion, though, will come more responsibility for staff, often more authority, bigger authority levels, formal sign-off levels will come usually with promotion. And I'm going to come back to this question about responsibility for staff again, because it can, in some people's eyes, detract from the core role that you like to fulfill. So if you enjoy financial analysis, promotion can often mean that you do less financial analysis and rather more staff management. And there's obviously a debate, a question to be had is to how much are you prepared to trade off the loss of the work that you like and often which gets you the opportunity to be promoted, and how much will you trade that off for staff responsibility, which is probably necessary if you're going to get to higher parts of the organization. The reason I've put this next item in and highlighted in red the question about performance-based is that clearly in most situations doing a good job, getting noticed for doing good performance is an essential part of being promoted. However, there are organizations, there are regimes where that isn't automatically, or it isn't at least the only reason for being promoted. It can be by tenure, so that after a certain amount of time that you get to a higher grading level. Often in complex grading schemes within private sector companies, there are automatic increases until you reach either the midpoint or top level of a grading structure, that sort of thing. Not, I guess, technically a promotion if it's within the same grade, but nevertheless some sort of automatic pay increases that go with length of time rather than with performance. But in the main, I will concentrate on the performance-related promotions because I think in most cases, in most organizations, this is going to be the most characteristic sort. Let's just also, though, just pause for a moment and reflect on the impact of flat organization structures. they get more and more popular, and by which I'm talking about rather than having the narrow organization chart when one CEO might have had 4 or 5 board members who each of which had 3 or 4 people working for them. Organizations flatten this out so that a board member might have 10, 12, 15 people working for them. There are obvious advantages in that. People get close to board level, they get close to the strategic issues of the company. But the downside can be that the nature of their roles is really quite limited. So that rather than have a breadth of responsibility as some sort of a deputy or whatever, they're actually in quite a niche role. And inevitably, if you're working for a director and if that director has 3 or 4 people reporting to them or 15 people working for them, probably the same amount of work needing to be done, then each individual is going to have much less. However, the biggest issue in terms of promotion is that because of the narrow nature of roles in a flat organization, then the opportunity to collect experience relevant to the next level can be very limited. So if you're working in a marketing organization and you have a very narrow role in digital marketing, for example, you're not going to get maybe the sort of experience that is going to equip you to be Director of Sales and Marketing, which is the next level in the organization. What can we do about that? I think we'll discuss that a bit more when I come on to talk about talent management, but in principle, it can be by planned sideways moves for a short while, rotation, maybe engineered by the company. It can be getting onto project teams, task groups, etc., etc., in order to get the sort of experience that is necessary for to move to the next level. Or what often happens is people assume more and more responsibility until such time as they're ready to take the next move. But all of that needs to be orchestrated by the organization. There's a limit to what individuals can do. Also, companies have adopted, when it goes sort of hand in glove, very, very wide pay bands. So often you might have a large organization which only has 3 or 4 actual pay levels, excuse me, which means that you can spend maybe a decade in the same pay band, simply moving from a salary maybe of 40,000 up to 80,000. It is all deemed to be, say, a middle management pay band. The advantage is it enables companies to move people around without issues of problematic differentials. But of course, from an individual's point of view, it means that the increase of responsibility doesn't come with that feeling that they have had a true promotional increase. And finally, of course, what often happens in companies, and I mentioned this in relation to flat organizations, is that promotion is in the form of bigger and bigger projects into programs, and that is the way in which you get the experience that may equip you for the next move. Of course, one of the troubles with project management and working in large organizations is whether you get the formal day-to-day departmental responsibility that may be important if you're going to move ultimately to directorship or to a senior management role. So whilst bigger projects can improve maybe your technical skill, your experience directly in project management, the question often is, does it equip you to adopt a senior departmental role? So, although what a promotion is may seem to be a straightforward question, then I think there are some sort of subtleties which can affect our thinking, and particularly, I would guess, the flat organization is probably the most important question to be considered in this context. So, next question, having decided what a promotion is, the next question, I guess, is why is it so important to have one? Maybe you're in a job which pays you a comfortable amount of money, you can have a reasonable lifestyle, you can meet all your sort of short-term needs in the salary that you're at, so salary may not be the driver in the short term. So I think it's very important that we all have a very clear idea as to what it is that we are looking for in relation to a promotion, because there are undoubtedly some downsides. For example, I mentioned earlier that a promotion can include more responsibility for staff and more budgetary responsibility. With that goes an emphasis on things like performance reviews, taking one-to-one meetings maybe every month, looking at forecasts, talking to accounts team about performance against forecast, maybe responding to a need to cut budgets by 10% and working through, excuse me, working through the implications of that. All of this is important from an organizational point of view, goes with the territory, maybe with a promotion, but for lots of people it's taking them away from what they love doing. And I'm going to come back to that one more time a little bit later and talk about some of the issues in a bit more detail there. Also, of course, with promotion may come travel. And whilst those of us who don't travel very much may see the travel of our colleagues as a distinct advantage, I'm told that when you're stuck at an overseas airport at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, looking forward to getting home to be told the flight's been delayed by 2 hours, the glamour of overseas travel becomes a little bit tarnished. And it's something to think about. Not only the inconvenience or potential inconvenience of overseas travel, but also that it may take you away from being able to work on things. It may put you out of communication with people. It may mean that the available time that you have for responding to emails, working on papers, etc., is actually restricted, depending on how well, what sort of traveller you are. So travel has its upsides, it distinctly has some downsides. Also, relocation. Is your family at an age and stage, and do they have commitments which make relocation really a very difficult issue to consider? Is there an appetite for relocation? And at the end of the day, take-home pay. If pay is a driver for promotion for you, unless your pay increase is pretty substantial, you may find that at the end of the day, the increase in your actual available disposable cash is limited. Having worked in HR, I can assure you that the HR people will not be over generous when it comes to promotional increases, and if there's a regrading involved, you'll go to the bottom of the new grade, or maybe something like a 5% increase would be a typical promotional increase. So pay, probably not a great driver in the short term. And of course, another factor is hours of work. Often we find that with promotion, an extra responsibility also goes longer hours of work. So there's lots of downsides there. And it's very important in considering some or all of those downsides that we have a really clear view as to what the motive is for you to take the promotion or to pursue a promotion. And I think it's important for each of us, when we're thinking about this, is also to think about what alternatives there might be. There may be things that you want to do other than climb the promotional ladder in the medium term. You may have an idea for a career move, for example. And sometimes, if you are successful in getting increasing salaries levels, It simply makes the possibility or the probability of making a career move where you may be at least having to move for the same salary or less, it makes it that much more difficult. So the higher your current salary and the commitments which therefore go with it, because most of us, believe it or not, spend up to the limit of our salaries, it just makes a career move into a new field at a lower salary, or maybe into some social entrepreneurship, or into the world of, say, charities, which are notoriously lower paid. It just makes it more difficult. So that might be something to think about. You may be at an age or stage in career at some point when part-time work is a possibility, or maybe interim work. All of these things might provide alternatives and need to be put into your particular frame when it's thinking about the desirability or otherwise of promotion. But let's assume that promotion is something that you want to do, and it may be no more or less than it is a sense of validation for you that your career is moving in the right direction, that you're validating your career in terms of getting that Jag to drive around in as a validation that you have been successful, and there's nothing wrong in that, provided you have a very clear idea that that is your motivation. So let's have a look at some of the sort of regimes that exist, and there are the sort of formal ones that promotion comes as a result of attending a course, and particularly true of things like the NHS, where attending a specialist course can result in increase in salary. Question, I guess, whether that's a true promotion or not, but often it may well be. Passing an exam. And even I'm told that some companies will pay more for MBAs or master's students when they have qualified. I was in a company which would not do that, but other companies certainly do. So promotions which go hand in glove with passing an exam or some other form of continual professional development. So those are the formal parts, but again, I would, I think, believe that by far the biggest area is the informal and largely performance-based. And if I can just interject go off on a slight tangent here, one of the things that I find quite often is that people see internal opportunities, internal vacancies, they approach them with a degree of casualness, that they are part of the organisation, everybody knows them, they know they do a good job, they'll roll up to the interview, it'll be a nice discussion with some people they know, and everything will be fine. I would urge caution on taking that approach for several reasons. I think companies are getting more careful to make sure that the people that they appoint into senior positions treat it with the sort of seriousness with which the organisation does. And often they will pitch internal candidates against external candidates. That was certainly something that I was very familiar with when I worked in Legal & General. Every senior job, without fail, we looked for external candidates, because we wanted to make sure that the people we appointed were the best possible people in the market. And of course, if an internal candidate does not treat the interview and selection process with the same degree of professionalism and seriousness with which external people do, they clearly put themselves at a considerable disadvantage. So I would strongly suggest, if you do get opportunities for promotion and they are formally handled, treat them with the same professionalism and the same seriousness with which you would treat an external opportunity. So just moving on to another area that is maybe goes without saying, that doing a good job is probably the precondition for any promotion that you might be thinking of. But I think it does break down into sort of three areas. A past record and reputation, and we'll come back to that word again in a minute, but having a reputation in the past for good performance is, of course, no bad thing, as reflected maybe in things like performance reviews and just informal contacts with line managers who will verify that you do a good job. And that, of course, extends into evidence in your current PDPs, etc., that you're doing a good job. Maybe the thing that isn't quite so obvious is the future. And to build a reputation as someone who is looking at future trends, looking to see what skills, abilities, experience, for example, are going to be necessary in the future, and particularly orientating that to the company you're working for. So to stop and think about where and how the company is likely to be moving forward, what sort of skills are going to become redundant and what sort of skills are going to become more in demand over the next 5 or so years. So, for example, how is social media, digital media, etc., going to impact on the company, your professional area, your role, and to take account of that and to be seen as someone who is thinking like that, who is thinking about continually developing their role, their skills, their experience in ways that are relevant to the company. Because, as we'll see when we talk about talent management, there will be people who are thinking about that at a corporate level. So if you can tie in to that, then you'll obviously be putting yourself at an advantage. So those 3 elements I would suggest in terms of doing a good job. And that really links through to having the appropriate experience. We've mentioned about staying ahead of trends, but also if you're thinking about a goal of being a CEO, either of the whole organization or a division of a large company, ask yourself what sort of experience is a CEO going to need. And apart from technical knowledge, we're probably thinking about some P&L accountability would be ideal, or at least responsibility for a major budget area where there are revenue and costs to be managed over time. So if you haven't got that right now and you have an aspiration for CEO, then there is a challenge in front of you to accumulate that experience before you become eligible for a CEO role. Also, of course, people responsibility if you want to get into line management. If you're in a specialist area with very little responsibility for people and you want to get into a broader line management and possibly senior management role, accumulating people responsibility is useful. And finally, if your future seems to be in the area of functional roles, then ensuring that you build a reputation as someone who's at the leading edge of their profession. So this might be around talking at conferences, and I'm talking about public conferences, writing in well-respected journals. And I know that Glaxo Pharmaceuticals years ago used to insist that every 18 months, senior management in Glaxo Pharmaceuticals either spoke at a world-renowned conference or wrote in leading journals. And the reason, of course, is that that company was portraying itself in its area of drug and pharmaceuticals as a leading world-class business. And they wanted to make sure that their management team also had a reputation of being world-class in their professional areas. So whether or not your company is as formal as that, it strikes me that it would be a good challenge to set yourself to make sure that you're either speaking at a conference or writing in leading journals over the next few years to build your reputation in your professional area. And if I can just sort of identify one of the most critical areas, and we've talked about this once or twice, and that is the transition maybe from working in a very functional role where you have personal accountability, personal professional responsibilities to the managing of people. And the book that I've highlighted here, it's called The Leadership Pipeline, focuses on exactly that issue and talks about the absolutely fundamental transition that we all make from managing ourselves or managing a project to managing people. And some individuals really never make that transition at a deep level. I worked for someone once who notionally was a chief executive, but if they had any time when they weren't pressed for meetings, etc., say on a Friday afternoon or something like that, they reverted back to their old task and would love nothing more than spending an hour catching up on what was going on in their old functional area. And that's a good sign that that person had never left behind they'd never made that transition that Charan and others talk about, which is that you value the processes of managing people more than you value the processes of running your functional area. So you value one-to-ones, you value developing your people, you value delegating and seeing them grow and take on more responsibility. You value being involved in sort of strategic thinking about the development of your function. This is more motivational to you than being a financial analyst, being a chemist, being a digital marketing expert, or whatever it might be. And it's a very difficult transition. It's one that lots of people don't, at a fundamental level, ever make. So, another area that I talked about earlier is the importance of being noticed. And in largish organizations, and I would say any organization above maybe 1,000, 1,500 employees, it is so important that you are seen to be doing a good job. Why? Because often it is not part of the formal processes by which you get a promotion. The informal processes work just as hard, if not more important. So you want people in your business who are not your line manager to be thinking of you in a very positive light. Maybe to be thinking about you as someone who they would like to have in their team. And the only way that's going to happen is obviously if they know about you. So being seen, having a reputation in your business, in the areas we talked about earlier, for having in the past been a good performer, currently being a good performer, and having a view about where the business is going, those sorts of things can only do you good when it comes to promotions. And even if you're working in a company which apparently has formal processes, believe me, the informal processes will always really be important. So there's nothing to stop a manager coming up to your desk and saying, look, I'm looking for a new head of marketing. I expect to see your application on my desk, which is as good a nudge as you can get, whatever the formal processes might be. And I've just listed a few ways in which you might raise your profile there, putting yourself forward to working parties, speaking at internal management conferences. Often people who run those are desperate for speakers, so putting yourself forward can be good. Sometimes companies have very strong charitable activities, using people inside the company to help with charity work, and so putting yourself forward for one of those for that sort of work can also get you mixing with lots of people. Newsletters, internal blogs and that sort of thing can also raise your profile. So any and every way like that, over and above doing a good job, is going to be important. And really, what I've been talking about, and maybe a theme that is coming through at in this sort of way, is being proactive in terms of your career is vital and probably getting more important as time goes on. So becoming an expert in your field, for example, is, I think, going to be more and more important, and I want to just say a little bit more about that when I make a few concluding remarks. Writing articles, and I'm talking here about external, and blogs, again, external, subject to sort of the confidentiality and what have you from your own company, and I'm talking about professional articles, professional blogs, not the sort of scandal sheets, can also help. Using LinkedIn, joining appropriate groups on LinkedIn, taking an active part in those, entering into discussions, etc., can also be useful. Speaking at conferences, as I've already mentioned. So you're building a reputation in your company, in your industry, in your profession. And so when it comes to promotion, clearly your company should be looking to you for that promotion, because in so doing, they're putting in place someone who already has a wide in-company and outside reputation for excellence in that field. I am also conscious, though, you might just have in the back of your mind thinking, well, you know, I'm working hard now just to stand still. I work long hours. I'm feeling under pressure. All this stuff seems to be an additional burden. And in a way, I'm not going to give you much comfort, because the answer is yes, it is. It is more to do. And if we go back to the question we posed right at the beginning of this webinar, which was, what is your motivation for promotion? It needs to be pretty strong, I think, and likely to get stronger as automatic promotion possibilities that maybe used to be around become less and less characteristic. So finding the time, making the time to develop your expertise, etc., is really going to become more and more important as time goes on, for some of the reasons I'll allude to in a minute. So maybe skills of time management, delegation, real rigorous focus, using companies' increasing feeling that flexible working patterns are okay. So having a day off from the office to develop some of these thoughts at home or somewhere else, all of these things might be necessary, but it all becomes a part of your motivation and your drive to get promoted. So one other area, just before I sort of make some concluding remarks, that I wanted to just dwell on is the role of talent management. And you might be thinking, well, I don't think we do this in my company. Let me assure you that you do. It may not have somebody called a talent manager. In fact, when I did this role, my title was not talent manager. But somebody, be it the CEO, be it one of the board, be it the HR director, there'll be somebody in the company who is thinking about where the business is going over the next 10 years, and in what way can we develop the people in our business to ensure that we continue to be successful in the context of the next 10 years. And in terms of the definition that I've used there, a recurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. My observation on that is that these are behavioral qualities. This is about an attitude, and people in talent management roles will be looking for that attitude just as much as they'll be looking at your CV, just as much as they'll be looking at what work that you have done. Because when I worked as a talent manager, what I was at pains to do was to create pools of talent. In other words, the old-fashioned ideas of succession charts were out the window, and I wanted pools of people who are able to move across the company. And this was right through from graduates to the board. And so I wanted people who were prepared to relocate. I wanted people who were prepared to move out of marketing and work in HR. only people who are prepared to move from a functional role to a line manager. If they show the willingness to do that, then we would provide the wherewithal to enable it. Maybe working parties, task groups, etc., etc. If those people did not show that attitude, then the company was really not going to help very much in that respect. So talent development, I think, is about an attitude of mind as much as it is about anything else. So let me just conclude with a couple of observations. This is a chart I used to use quite a bit, which purports to show in green that when you're at a low level of the organization, you have a lot of responsibility for your personal development, and when you reach the top of the organization, in red, that the organization has a lot of responsibility for your development to make sure that you're appropriately equipped to be a board member, etc., etc. I'm now actually thinking that this is probably no longer accurate, or certainly won't be accurate, because I think the individual responsibility, which, as you can see from this, it suggests that it reaches a point at the top, I don't think ever does. I think the individual responsibility for career development stays at a very significant level really throughout your responsibility, throughout your career, jointly with the organization. But as I've just said, unless you show the appetite for promotion, for development, etc., it's unlikely that the organization will be willing to give you the sort of support that you might need. So just a few final thoughts, and this is really about the longer term, considering the size, the scope of your business and your profession in the next 10 years. And I found some statistics which sort of are quite intriguing and illustrative. These are sort of United Nations figures. For example, in the year 2000, there were 8 cell phone subscriptions per 100 people in the world. 8 per 100 people. In 2010, the figure was 76.2. Clearly, if you extrapolate that, it suggests the world is going to be fantastically connected in the next 10 years. That almost, wide swathes of the world are going to be connected and online or via mobile communication throughout the working day and longer, probably. So I think it beholds all of us to think very hard about what is happening in the world, what is happening, what trends are going on that really, as individuals and in individual companies, we cannot determine. We have to work with those flows. And as you can see, one of the statistics here, between 2007 and 2017 in the UK alone, baby boomers, these are people born really up to between 1945 and 1960, those will be retiring. And that will create 11.5 million job vacancies. And there are areas of the economy, even with our current unemployment, who are experiencing skill shortages. What will be the impact of China and India on the global economy and on your business over the next 10 years? What's going to happen to IT, which just gets cheaper and cheaper? Connectivity, social media. I think it's going to be absolutely crucial in thinking about promotion and your career that you factor in the impact of these sorts of issues. And one person that I would recommend that you look at is the work of Linda Grattan, who's written this book called The Shift and started a group which is on Twitter and blogs called the Future of Work Group. And there's a link there to an article that she has written on this subject. And she talks a lot about the world of 2025. And for some of the people on this webinar today, that will still be a very relevant date. And one of the things that she talks about is serial mastery. In other words, developing expertise in your own right, which will be relevant over that time scale, and where you can use connectivity to become a global expert. You can be in touch with people in any part of the world who are working in your area, and where you can build the sort of synergy and expertise anywhere in the world with people who have similar interests to yours. So she talks about serial mastery taking over from ideas of general management. Okay, I don't want to dwell too long on this, but just to alert you, I think, to the thought that in terms of looking at promotions in companies, that is a relatively short term, relatively within the current status quo. The important challenge, I think, is to think not only about that, but also about where you and your business and your profession and your industry is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, and to think in terms of your career development in that context. So, very happy to address any issues or questions that you've raised, and I think we've already got a few here. Let me just get to first one. Okay, somebody asking, I find it difficult to break into the management position. My performance is greatly recognized by management. I have 2 MSCs. My English is great, but I speak with an East European accent. I also find it challenging to blend into the English to be able to be understood the nuances of behavior. What is your advice for me? I think in some respects it's important to engage with your company. I mean, there's a sense here that you are what we've maybe called in this webinar a sort of functional expert, and your company may well be very happy for you to continue developing your strength in that area. Also, the comments I made just at the end of the presentation about being serial mastery, I think you may want to think about whether you want to break into management with all the consequences of that in terms of people management, taking you away from expertise, and rather develop a sort of global reputation, become a serial master in your own area. But if you are motivated by getting into management with staff and budget responsibilities, etc., then there is very much you are really going to need to build a case really with management, that with your company management, which says that this is an aspiration of yours. And I would urge you to ask yourself, what is the benefit to the business of moving you from where you are into line management? They might be thinking, well, we're very happy with you doing this, etc. And you have to build the case. It won't just happen. Build the case, which might be the inference that if you don't, you'll move somewhere else. But hopefully you can be more positive than that about why you should move. And part of that, I think, is maybe the 2 MSCs can be useful, but they're probably not enough in terms of motivating your company to think of you as a potential manager. Get them to think sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now and the value that you could have to the business. In terms of your accent, etc., I can only, and behavior, I can only say that you simply need to look at, speak English a lot, talk to colleagues in English if that's appropriate, and really try and use English almost all the time. If classes and that sort of thing are necessary, fine. And I think you may be able to overestimate the difficulties of the nuances of behavior and language, but there are ways in which you might think about that, and I will see if I can think of the person who's written a lot about culture, but have a look at culture, have a look at differences between your home culture and the UK culture, which might help you get a feel for the way in which we're different. In my past role as commissioning manager, I managed a team of 11 engineers. I felt people resisting me as a relatively young foreigner, despite me putting together a great project. How to build a reputation so people follow the manager in this case? Well, I mean, in a sense, I think this is slightly outside the realm, but is, I think, about demonstrating your added value, your leadership ability, that you can actually deliver something over and above the sum of the individuals in your project team. And again, I'm thinking that maybe some of the issues that you're thinking about may be more in your head than in the organization, because if you're delivering a great project, that should be very obvious to people in the organization that you work in, that you're an excellent project leader. And I think doing more of that is probably the single best way in which you can get people to respect you, to see you as a good leader, and to want to work with you. So do more of it, and rather than looking down, maybe look up and across to make sure that you're building that reputation with people, the right people in the organization. Those are the questions that have so far been put forward. Is there any other questions that people want to raise?
David, just perhaps because we have a few minutes as we wait for some questions to come in, would you perhaps like to make some extra comments about leveraging LinkedIn as a network for building or achieving your promotion?
Yes, and I think the use of LinkedIn and maybe as the primary, I think, social media vehicle, I think it comes within that part of building a reputation. I mean, one word of caution is, of course, that I think it needs to be very clear that what you're doing on LinkedIn is about building your reputation in areas which will be valuable to the company, because if you are seen to be doing this to promote your career outside the company, that may not go down too well. But in the main, if you can join appropriate groups, take part in the discussions, maybe start discussions in LinkedIn, it very quickly start to earn reputation for being proactive, for having something interesting to say, offering people new insights. I think it's very important that your reputation is built on offering value and difference, not simply being one of the crowd on LinkedIn who, frankly, we probably all just ignore. So join fewer rather than loads of groups, few really relevant groups, and be active in working on those groups, I think, is probably the best way in which you can use LinkedIn.
Thank you very much. So we're going to be signing off soon. I just want to thank David for sharing all his great insights for this webinar. I want to reiterate that this will be recorded so that you can listen to it again afterwards. Please do respond to the online evaluation form, which comes up just at the end of this webinar. So it'll just take you a minute as we log off, and you go straight to the webinar, and that gives us feedback for developing the delivery and subject areas for our future webinars. So if you don't have the chance to complete it immediately, you'll also be emailed the link. But the easiest thing is just to complete it immediately and give us lots of feedback. And thank you very much for joining us today. And if you have any ideas for future topics that you'd like us to address, please let us know, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Bye.